The nightmare began when a visitor bypassed every security measure. What they saw made them freeze. This powerful master realized he wasn't alone, but how? He never sensed a single footstep behind him, until now. Suddenly, a polite manager appeared with a terrifying smile. But he wasn't here to talk, he wanted his money. That's when he revealed the legendary Ledger of Doom. No one expected that, then without warning, the calculations began to spiral out of control. The interest was higher than any debt in history. But why? The total amount was impossible for any man to pay? In that instant, he begged for one more month to save his life. And then, without explanation, but the manager's polite mask suddenly began to crack. Now he must pay the ultimate price with his own flesh? He thought it was just a loan, but that was just the story begins with a massive army marching to war. They stand before the towering gates of the enemy fortress. Their leader sits calmly, watching the horizon with cold eyes. A terrifying smile spreads across his wrinkled face today. His loyal soldiers shout their undying devotion to the cult. The entire world will finally kneel at your feet, Lord. Weiji Qian accepts their praise as if it were destiny. Suddenly, question breaks the heavy silence. What? Where did we get the money for these fancy clothes? The demonic cult had been broke for many long years. A generous stranger lent it all to me, he replies. The subordinate stares back in total, utter disbelief. He was quite eager to give it away, actually. Who would dare lend money to a band of demons? Why? Terrifying realization suddenly strikes the warrior's mind. He believes his master simply stole the gold by force. Truly, you are the greatest villain of all time, Lord. He assumes the banks were too terrified to say no. To conquer without spilling blood is pure, brilliant genius. He wonders which idiot would trust a demon with gold. I am no thief, you insolent fool, the leader snaps. He begins searching through his pockets for something hidden. He reveals a contract signed with a bloody thumbprint. Polite man named Manager Kim handled everything personally. Was it really a legal loan? Danger now lurked nearby. The emissary noticed the terrifying special conditions. If he failed, his very life force would be seized. But wait, the repayment deadline was actually today? Cold sweat trickled down his trembling chin. Suddenly, he burst into a desperate, arrogant laugh. Who cares about a deadline when you rule everything? The great lord sat calmly, absorbing the flattery. His follower hailed him as the heaven above heavens. Their wicked laughter echoed across the high balcony. The time for words had finally ended. He raised his blade and declared himself the world's ruler. The order was simple: plunder and burn it all. With a cold gaze, he pointed toward the horizon. The signal was given with a sharp gesture. Hundreds of hooded shadows swore their eternal loyalty. The Lord watched as destiny began to unfold. Suddenly, the mountain air filled with bloodthirsty screams. Thousands of warriors roared, ready for a total massacre. An unstoppable sea of soldiers awaited his final command. The thundering sound of boots shook the earth. They charged forward like a swarm of hungry locusts. Above them stood the man who defied all debt. He smirked, fully confident in his inevitable victory. He returned to his seat with chilling grace. Would his tea stay warm while the world burned? The old master sighed contentedly. He relaxed on his throne with premium tea. Suddenly, a voice called out, and he spat it all out. Who could have snuck past his defenses so easily? Just strangers walked toward him across the open courtyard. Bye! A man with a chillingly polite smile led the way. Led! Beside him stood a silent woman with piercing green eyes. This was the man who had lent him the gold. But something was terribly wrong here. How did he fail to sense their approach? Rooch! Both parties stared each other down in the wind. Weiji Qian was the world's strongest master, yet this stranger just bowed and introduced himself as a banker. Manager Kim reminded him of their previous meeting. The politeness felt more threatening than a drawn sword. Da! Instinct screamed that this man was incredibly dangerous. Demanding answers, the master asked what they truly were. Manager Kim just laughed while searching through his robes. He produced a thick, leather-bound ledger. It was officially time to pay back the massive debt. The assistant adjusted her glasses with a sharp glint. She prepared her abacus for the final calculation. The wooden beads clicked rapidly under her skilled fingers. Every slide represented another mountain of debt. Was the legendary heavenly demon finally out of time? Manager Kim laughed and revealed the terrifying truth. He calculated the massive debt with a wicked grin. The total amount made the demon freeze. Why was the interest rate so absurdly high? Manager Kim reminded him that private loans are never cheap. He leaned in with a sinister, mocking look. No bank would ever trust a violent syndicate leader. Suddenly, the demon roared in pure, unbridled fury. To the world, they were only dangerous, demonic practitioners. They were at risk of being dismantled at any moment. The truth hit the legendary leader like a physical blow. No central bank would risk fighting the orthodox factions. What? A finger pointed directly to the fine print. Boo! The woman revealed the contract he had already signed. He gnashed his teeth in absolute, bitter frustration. Finally, a heavy sigh escaped his trembling lips. He admitted that his pockets were currently empty. He raised a single finger for attention. But what? He gestured toward the vast, distant mountain ranges. Those rich lands were ripe for his next conquest. Manager Kim only complained about the dusty air. Now he planned to rob the entire Murim Alliance soon. He begged for just one more month of time. He staked his very name on this bloody promise. It was a gamble that could yield triple the return. A mocking laugh echoed throughout the silent chamber. The collector explained his ruthless repayment terms. But the statistical risk of failure was far too great. Suddenly, a heavy boot struck the floor with finality. The negotiation ended as the agreed time reached its limit. A sinister grin spread across his dark darkened face. "You must pay with your body," he commanded coldly. The legendary heavenly demon stood frozen in shock. How dare a commoner make such an insulting demand? Nearby, a dragon flag whipped violently in the gale. Suddenly, a beautiful stranger appeared among the mountain ruins. "Do!" She gazed at the conflict with wide, wondering eyes. In the next moment, a flash of energy blinded them. Darkness swallowed the light as the world grew cold. Was this the end? Panic flared in her eyes. The stone tiles beneath them shattered into dust. A terrifying aura erupted from the old master's body. What? He stood at the center of a growing crater. "Gee, do you truly dare to covet me?" he thundered. Death was the only cure for such massive arrogance. Bah! A colossal demon of purple flame rose behind him, but the young debt collector refused to back away. Intense pressure crushed the air from his burning lungs. "Are you trembling with fear now?" the demon mocked. What? It was far too late for prayers or mercy. The young man wailed about wasting precious internal energy. The villain blinked, stunned by such a weird reaction. He screamed about damaging property without his consent, but the warrior merely tightened his heavy, pulsing fist. He swung his blade with a cry of pure rage. A blinding arc of light ripped through the stone floor. Rocks exploded as the ground crumbled into dust. "Whoa! Die like the trash you are!" the brute roared. He unleashed the terrifying Black Knight Demise / purple shadows erupted in a wave of total destruction. The boy stood calmly amidst the swirling dark chaos. Suddenly, the massive strike missed its mark entirely. He stood there, smiling like a satisfied businessman. The purple energy continued its path toward the horizon. Far away, the blow sliced a mountain in half. A witness gasped, her heart stopping in her chest. Was it possible? A deflected strike destroyed a mountain? The villain began to chuckle with a wicked glint. He realized the boy was more than a mere nuisance. Gay! But he vowed this would be the boy's final breath. He drew his sword back for one ultimate strike. Demonic aura flared, turning the sky into a nightmare. "Take this," he screamed, eyes glowing a hellish red. Suddenly, the hero called him a very talkative customer. The brute froze, his confidence shattering in an instant. He realized a terrifying truth no one would believe. Suddenly, his world turned upside down as his breath hitched. A simple hand rested firmly against the mighty warrior's dantian. He realized he had completely missed the movements of this nobody. The stranger grinned, announcing, "The start of debt collection. It might sting just a little bit," the collector whispered playfully. Panic flared in the heavenly demon's eyes as reality set in. A blinding gold light erupted from his core without warning. "Yo!" he screamed as if his very organs were being ripped away. Was it the star-absorbing art? He cried out in total despair. Violent swirls of pure energy were forcefully dragged from his body. "Valued customer, please relax your body," the manager shouted joyfully. Ouija Cheon cursed the hard work now being stolen from him. "I am feeling generous today," the collector sang through the chaos. A dark shadow crossed the collector's smiling face. "Ay!" Tears streamed down the face of the once unstoppable martial legend. The massive temple shook under the weight of the departing power. Finally, the legendary demon slumped forward, his cultivation completely gone. "Debt collection is complete!" the manager exclaimed with a polite bow. He formally introduced himself and his silent, beautiful assistant. "Please use our bank services again soon," he cheered loudly. The broken warrior stared blankly at the small paper business card. "No!" A single, shaky word escaped his lips as he trembled. He collapsed backward onto the shattered stone, his spirit crushed. Only the manager's card remained as a reminder of his ruin. A new chapter in the bank's history slowly unfolded. Deep within Sichuan province, a bustling restaurant held a dark secret. Travelers and warriors filled the air with their loud chatter. Steam rose from plates of meat and cold bamboo liquor. Foo! Suddenly, a man leaned in to whisper a shocking rumor. He spoke of the demonic cult and their terrifying halt. Was it true? The tables erupted in disbelief and confusion. They wondered why the cult's advance had finally stopped. "What? Don't be ridiculous," one scarred warrior barked at his friend. Memories of the demonic leader's carnage returned. 10 years ago, he slaughtered 100 masters all alone. Truly, he was a monster standing atop a mountain of corpses. Could such a beast be setting a deadly, invisible trap? The purple aura of the cult had once felt unstoppable. You! Their massive army had stood ready to crush the world. Perhaps he suffered from a sudden chi DVAI? Another wondered. The tension in the room thickened like a heavy fog. Every patron began imagining their own grand conspiracy. Was there a hidden reason lurking behind this strange delay? One man jokingly suggested they simply ran out of money. The restaurant fell silent for a fleeting, awkward moment. The entire room exploded into wild, mocking laughter. "Getting by without funds is tough for everyone," he joked. The idea of a penniless heavenly demon was just too hilarious. But in the corner, a mysterious smirk told another story. Manager Kim nodded in calm agreement. Riwa watched him closely across the wooden table. She knew that gold speaks all languages. Server arrived boasting about fresh ingredients. Riwa's eyes gleamed at the thought of a grand feast. Kim's expression turned cold and serious. He reminded her that company funds are for business. His sharp gaze revealed they were deep in debt. Suddenly, he ordered the cheapest noodles on the menu. 2 bowls of plain broth landed on the table. Riwa cursed his stingy heart while they ate. She slurped the plain broth with a deep frown. Kim corrected her about their next target status. A devious grin spread across the manager's lips. Their next target was the legendary Manhwa. They traveled deep into the Shaanxi province that night. Huayan County bustled with life and hidden secrets. A single step signaled their arrival. They stopped before a dark and quiet path. Kim called this humble spot their new workplace. Suddenly, a booming voice commanded them to halt. Two guards blocked the way with menacing glares. Riwa wondered why such a shabby place needed protection. The pavilion stood silent against the moonlight, but the guard demanded an entry token immediately. He simply admitted he did not have a token. Whoa! The guard's eye twitched with pure, unadulterated rage. Metal shrieked as the blade left its scabbard. He barked a final warning for the stranger to flee. But our hero just let out a long, weary sigh. He questioned if these men had ever actually killed. Suddenly, his playful expression vanished into a terrifying shadow. Yeah! Guard lunged forward, screaming threats of a coffin. He soared through the air, aimed directly at the heart. In the next moment, the Debt King's fingers twitched. The lethal strike missed by a mere hair's breadth. How could a mere wanderer move with such insane speed? Cold hand clamped down on the guard's wrist. No! A guard was already eating dirt in a messy heap. The survivor felt cold sweat pouring down his pale face. Yui! Desperate, he charged again with a wild, frantic roar. He unleashed the forbidden poison fang flash with total desperation. Was it effective? No. He caught it with his fingertips. The hardened steel shattered like thin, fragile glass. Terror finally gripped the guard's soul as he gaped. The master stood behind him before he could even blink. Blue bursts of internal energy exploded against his back. A pain scream echoed through the dark, silent forest. Finally, he crumbled to the ground in a smoking heap. But a mysterious lady watched the entire slaughter silently. Manager Kim unleashed strikes no clan could recognize. His speed defied logic, piercing every vital point instantly. These techniques belonged to no known orthodox or unorthodox faction. Woo! The lady recalled him facing the demonic cult alone. He crushed the heavenly demon without a hint of hesitation. But soon she wondered what his true identity really was. Should she just step forward and ask him directly? No, a man like him would never offer the truth. Manager Kim turned his cold gaze toward the fallen. A survivor groaned in agony as his strength faded away. Suddenly, the man shrieked as his internal energy completely shattered. The lady joined him as they surveyed the bloody wreckage. He had severed their meridians to protect the common folk. He ordered the lady to drag the bodies away. He walked toward the pavilion while she did the work. She cursed her terrible boss while pulling them by their feet. Suddenly, Kim stood before a secret entrance in the building. Oh! Was the room empty? No, a hidden path waited. He discovered a dark staircase leading deep underground. He descended slowly into the damp shadows of the passage. A wide and greedy grin spread across his face. Ho ho! He whispered, finding exactly what he was seeking. Suddenly, a massive gambling hall appeared before his eyes. Dozens of desperate men were busy betting their lives. A man screamed, ready to bet his hand on luck. The gambling hall erupted into chaotic shouts of pure frustration. The manager arrived with his assistant, the lovely Mak Riwa. She scolded him for moving far too slowly today. Bro! She realized this rowdy den was their actual workplace. What? The manager simply smiled, confirming her growing suspicions with a grin. Brishy! Riwa choked on the air, complaining about the pungent, stuffy stench. He joked that money simply has its own unique, heavy fragrance. Suddenly, a voice gasped as someone won 3 games straight. There he is, the manager whispered, finding their special target. Tension thickened as the winner slowly gripped his wooden gambling tiles. Look! The crowd stared in awe at the young, confident fellow winning. But wait, a hidden symbol rested on his dark, expensive robes. Riwa's eyes widened as she recognized that distinct flowery crest. Was he actually an elite disciple from the legendary Manhua? The manager's smile grew wide, looking like a hungry predator stalking. He didn't see a sucker, only a very wealthy new customer. This was Chongsang, the youngest plum blossom swordsman in history. His name shook the entire Murim, yet he had one weakness. The manager looked at the profile and chuckled at the irony. At the gambling table, this elite swordsman is a total sucker. Riwa scolded him for twisting words about their new target. She wondered if the intel about his luck was truly accurate. The young master began to sweat over his cards. Word! I'll raise, he shouted, slamming a fortune onto the table. He demanded to see their heads, desperate for a lucky break. The wooden tiles clattered onto the green felt table. Suddenly, the crowd roared because the junior brother actually won! He raked in a mountain of coins, laughing like a madman. From across the room, every eye watched his massive haul. But Mak Riwa watched closely, wondering if this was truly luck. Manager Kim smirked, thinking it wise to stop right now. He asked if she knew the table's scariest secret. His brothers cheered, certain he would sweep the entire den. Manager Kim leaned forward, his expression turning cold and sharp. He whispered that the greatest danger is a fluke winning streak. Mak Riwa blinked in shock as the atmosphere began to shift. The manager's words acted like a dark curse. debtors. Suddenly, another player flipped tiles and claimed the victory instead. The junior brother froze, losing the pot by a narrow margin. He laughed it off, pretending the loss did not hurt him, but his opponent simply smiled, hiding a much more sinister intent. In the next round, he felt certain his hand was unbeatable. Was it enough? No. His rival won by a narrow margin. He slammed his tiles down, desperate to reclaim his lost gold. Yet again, the opponent revealed a higher hand. With a smirk, the winner sighed mockingly, claiming he felt bad for winning. Rage boiled inside as his trembling hand crushed the wooden tiles. Losing by narrow margins had completely paralyzed his ability to reason. His worried brothers pleaded with him to get up and leave, but he reached into his robe, searching for a last gamble. The massive stack of silver coins hit the table. He slammed them down, risking everything he owned. The crowd gasped at such a reckless suicidal bet. He screamed that his gut was never wrong. Silence fell as he lost it all. His companions hurried away, leaving him to rot alone. The tavern emptied, leaving only shadows and bitter regret. Suddenly, a tall figure watched from the corner. Beside him stood a woman with a cold, piercing gaze. The man tapped the table with a knowing smirk. Whoa! It was time for them to start their night's work. Outside, a pale moon hung over the jagged mountain peaks. The gambler gripped his hair, trembling in absolute despair. He slumped on the porch, ruined by his own greed. He whispered that he had truly lost his mind tonight. If his master found out, death would be a mercy. Suddenly, a voice drifted through the cold night air. A man appeared, offering a path out of the darkness. His smile was wide, but his eyes remained deadly sharp. He claimed to be a friendly neighbor with a solution. The gambler looked up, his heart pounding in his chest. Was this a miracle or a deal with the devil? He wondered if these people were actually heartless loan sharks. The stranger loomed over him like a hungry predator. What? He only wanted to help those in desperate need. The Manhua warrior roared in absolute fury. He felt insulted by a mere loan collector's bold offer. But the manager just chuckled and reached into his robes. Suddenly, a massive stack of silver coins appeared. The disciple's eyes locked onto the treasure. Was it real? Status means nothing when you are desperately broke, right? He teased the swordsman with a heavy scent of wealth, and cold sweat dripped down the proud warrior's trembling face. Could a noble disciple actually fall for such a trap? The lure of silver was simply too strong to resist. His pride crumbled under the weight of his hidden greed. A mysterious bank contract was presented for him. The manager smiled warmly, promising a very quick loan. The process is simple. Just sign on the dotted line. There was no turning back from this dark deal now. With a swift stroke, his fate was sealed on paper. He handed it over, eyes burning with a manic hunger. Called! He cackled with joy, losing his mind to pure greed. The manager happily approved the transaction with a snap. The man bolted away like a wild animal. He didn't even look back while running toward his doom. The girl noticed the paper on the ground. She picked it up to read the strange fine print. Why would a righteous sect member fall so low? The manager explained that every person has their price. The manager declared that labels hold no real value. To him, every warrior was merely a potential asset. Miss Mott felt a chilling tension in the air. They walked calmly into the heart of the enemy's camp. Bo! A broken warrior trembled before them, gasping for his life. Memories of the brutal battle flashed through their minds. The survivors were dragged away, their spirits completely crushed. Hushed! Suddenly, phantom strikes erupted across the poor man's body. A massive, scarred titan blocked their path with crossed arms. Was he intimidated? No, the giant looked absolutely murderous. Dust. Manager Kim teased Miss Mac for her messy cleanup job. Meanwhile, a swarm of thugs gathered like hungry vultures. Kim flashed a bright smile and introduced his bank. Oh! The giant scoffed, having never heard of such a place. He called Kim an arrogant brat who lacked common sense. No! Why should I care? Kim replied with a cheeky grin. The leader's eye twitched as his patience finally snapped. What? He ordered his men to cripple the young manager immediately. Suddenly, the entire gang charged forward with lethal intent. One thug lunged wildly, swinging a massive, jagged blade. The attacker's momentum was violently turned against him. Wow! A sickening crack echoed as his bone met raw force. The man's scream of agony pierced the silent night sky. He collapsed into the dirt, defeated before he even landed. But another wave of madness rushed in to finish them. The young master lunged forward like a lightning bolt. He didn't waste a single movement or second. A thunderous strike exploded against his opponent's chest. But the impact sent the thug spiraling into the trees. Even the giant leader began to tremble in place. Could a mere boy truly possess such overwhelming power? Bodies littered the grass as silence reclaimed the forest. He had neutralized an entire squad in one breath. In their terrified eyes, he looked like a demonic monster, and cold sweat poured down the giant's scarred face. Gah! The brute tried to mask his terror. He demanded a groveling apology to save his pride. Was he serious? The young master just sighed. Suddenly, the giant was launched into the dark sky. Blood sprayed everywhere as his internal organs crumbled. The boy stood tall, barely breaking a sweat. Their supposed unbeatable champion was now just trash. A chilling smile crept onto the hero's face. He promised a painful fate for future gambling dens. The broken leader could only groan in absolute agony. He turned his attention to his loyal assistant. He pointed at the mess in order to clean up. Move it, boss. quality manager, he shouted with a smirk. His cold gaze shifted back to the horizon. Finally, he wondered if their customer had won any money. The atmosphere at the table grew incredibly tense. Gore! The poor man stared at his cards with trembling hands. Ooh! Suddenly, he slammed the table in a fit of rage. He screamed that the entire game was rigged against him, but the dealer only chuckled at the pathetic loser. Would a Manhwa disciple really throw such a tantrum? The entire room erupted in cruel, mocking laughter. Outside, the cold night air bit at the silent mountains. The desperate warrior burst through the front doors. He nearly collided with the very men he needed. His face lit up with a terrifying, insane joy. He begged them for just one more heavy loan, just one more chance to win it all back. However, the shark demanded something valuable as collateral. The man looked down at his most precious possession. Would he really gamble away his own sect's honor? He held up the sacred jade plaque from his master. Greed had completely stripped him of his common sense. A heavy bag of coins changed greedy hands. Bide! The cycle of despair began once again. Time passed slowly as the record played on repeat. Go! He rushed back into the den with renewed vigor. He demanded more money while his eyes bulged out. He even swore upon the great Manhua name. Collector smiled, knowing his prey was finally trapped. He poor man trembled while clutching his losing hand. He accepted the fourth loan with shaking fingers. Sake! The exchange happened silently under the cold moonlight. Suddenly, the fifth loan was demanded with a heavy strike. The final bet was placed in total desperation. A soul-crushing scream echoed through the dark gambling den. Outside, the world remained quiet and indifferent to his ruin. The collector declared his business finished for the night. He gestured for Miss Mac to follow him home, but she worried about the man's terrifying screams of defeat. The collector joked that debts should age like fine sauce. She asked what happens if he refuses to pay. He smiled, claiming that a refusal would be even better. Suddenly, he revealed his plan to cut the debtor open. Meanwhile, the sun rose over the majestic Manhua sect. Its grand halls hid a secret of great shame. Inside his room, the disciple curled up in deep regret. He gripped his hair, realizing the gravity of his mistake. Why was he so foolishly addicted to the cards? His mind spiraled as he recalled the night's events. He remembered taking massive loans from that smiling man. Worse, he had gambled away his master's precious jade plaque. Death would be a mercy compared to his master's wrath. Suddenly, a sharp knock at the door broke the silence. Sect leader was calling, and judgment was finally here. Chung-Sung clutched his head in absolute terror. His eyes widened at the mention of his master. Meanwhile, the Grand Manhua sect stood silent and imposing. He knelt, trembling before the powerful sect leader. Taoist Hyunjong gazed down with a piercing, unreadable expression. Sweat poured as the disciple stuttered his greeting. "You missed training," the leader noted with cold disappointment. Chung-Sung lied while his mind raced with crushing gambling debts. In the next moment, the old man reached into his robes. A small wooden box clattered onto the floor. Hoo! It bore the golden crest of the legendary plum blossom. Suddenly, a sweet medicinal scent filled the tense air. "This is the plum blossom pill to restore your strength." Was it a dream? Chung-Sung could hardly believe his ears. Slowly, he reached out and clicked the latch open. A brilliant purple light exploded from within the tiny chest. Jew! It was a treasure every martial artist in Murim craved. Instead of a scolding, he received a priceless gift. He looked up, his heart sinking with a terrible secret. "The future of Manhwa rests upon your shoulders." The weight of those words felt heavier than any mountain. A dark thought emerged. What if he sold it? He slumped outside, overwhelmed by his own greed. "I am nothing but a beast," he hissed in self-loathing. But the noise of the sect called him back to reality. The villagers begged for a small divine favor. The disciple smiled kindly, promising to pray for them. These common folk sought the miraculous energy of Manhua. They offered simple gifts like rice cakes and fresh fruit. But away from the crowd, he sat in complete silence. Cold sweat dripped down Chung-Sung's nervous face. He cursed under his breath, feeling the weight of debt. Suddenly, he clutched a small, ornate wooden box tightly. Yo! Inside rested a precious pill, his last hope for survival. He tucked the treasure away with a heavy heart. He decided to sell it at a pawn shop. The pill's energy was tiny compared to his massive debt. Was losing the master's plaque worse? He thought so. In his mind, he had finally found a desperate way. But could he really go through with this betrayal? He slipped away, vowing to quit gambling forever. Darkness soon swallowed the majestic peaks of the sect. Suddenly, he vaulted over the high stone walls. He landed softly in the shadows, heart pounding. "Forgive me, master," he whispered into the silent night. "What?" He hurried through the thick, whispering forest. Suddenly, a stern voice shattered the quiet mountain air. Chung-Sung froze as a tall figure loomed nearby. "Yo!" A smiling face asked where he was going so late. It was the rigid senior brother. He was caught. The senior brother loomed closer with a sharp, piercing gaze. Hero stammered a truly pathetic excuse about fresh air. "Da!" But the wall was much too high for a simple stroll. Suddenly, sweat poured down as his lies crumbled in real time. The air grew thick with a cold and terrifying silence. "What are you hiding in your robes?" the brother demanded. In the next moment, the secret box was snatched away, violently. The senior brother slowly pried the lid open with curiosity. Suddenly, the brilliant plum blossom pill glowed like a purple son. Where did a low-level disciple find such a holy medicine? He panicked and claimed the sect leader bestowed it upon him. The senior brother's face suddenly transformed into a beaming smile. He cheered, celebrating the master's great wisdom and foresight. Wait, why take it outside in the dark night? He lied again, claiming he didn't want to show off. Oh! Tears welled up in the senior brother's eyes immediately. He begged for forgiveness for doubting such a humble heart. I shall guard you while you consume it right here. Was this a blessing? No, it was a total nightmare. He insisted the energy was too dangerous to handle alone. Yo! Without hesitation, the senior brother sat down to begin the watch. He looked incredibly cheerful while the hero's soul started to escape. He tried to refuse, but the pressure was far too much. Chi deviation is no joke, the senior brother roared loudly. His fate was sealed. The unwanted training began right now. But first, he tried every pathetic excuse to escape practice. His senior brother ignored every single desperate plea. Suddenly, he realized he was truly and utterly doomed. A mysterious wooden box clicked open in the night. Inside sat a pill with a strange, deadly glow. He trembled. Finally, he shoved the pill down his throat and swallowed. And that single gulp changed everything. Massive waves of internal energy erupted from his very core. He quickly locked his fingers into a traditional spiritual seal. Blinding light swirled. Even his senior brother gasped at this incredible display. The senior laughed loudly, praising his junior's massive talent. The energy settled. Deh! He clasped his hands together in a sign of respect. Thank you for your grace, he shouted with joy. But wait, did that grin look a bit too insane? He collapsed against a tree once he was alone. His face sagged as he whispered that it was over. The valuable pill was gone, wasted inside his own stomach. Now, the debt collectors would surely come to kill him. Memories of a cursed contract flashed before his eyes. Despair settled. Bear? Suddenly, his eyes snapped open with a new, terrifying resolve. Would he give up? No. A dark realization struck. He pondered a ruthless alternative to repayment. A wicked grin spread across his face. He remembered those annoying loan sharks. His internal energy began to overflow brilliantly. He questioned why he should even pay back. He chose murder. The moon watched the quiet rooftops. Silent footsteps echoed against the stone. Hey! He reached the inn. Cold sweat dripped down his face. He stood before the entrance, recalled their location. His gaze turned cold. Woo! Slipped silently inside. He moved deeper into the dark hallway. His simple logic felt undeniable. Decided to finish this cleanly. The target door loomed. He stopped. Muffled voices leaked through the wood. He confirmed his prey were inside. His hand tightened on the hilt. Me! Suddenly, he unleashed a massive surge of power. They would die together. Suddenly, the ground shattered under a devastating impact. Dust swirled as the warrior landed with heavy force. He unleashed the seventh stance of his secret art. A blinding pink light carved through the very air. Petals of energy scattered like a beautiful deadly storm. The structure groaned under the sheer power. Die! The entire roof exploded into 1,000 wooden shards. Silence fell as the warrior stood amidst the wreckage. Moonlight poured through the gaping hole above his head. He exhaled deeply, believing the nightmare had finally ended. His trembling hand finally relaxed its grip on the sword. No! Memories of debt and gold flooded his mind. Shouts from the street below shattered his brief peace. His eyes darted across the floor, searching for one item. Where was it? Desperation began to claw at his throat. A faint glimmer caught his sharp gaze. The jade plaque lay safely hidden within the splintered debris. B! He snatched it up and bolted toward the exit. In the next moment, he soared into the dark night. He landed gracefully on a rooftop, far from the chaos, moved like a shadow across the quiet town. No! Gasps of relief escaped his lungs as he stopped. A manic, terrifying grin stretched across his exhausted face. Oh! Was it over? Finally, he was free from the burden. Yet, in his joy, he overlooked a fatal mistake. The silent night in Huang County watched everything, but danger hid within the cold moonlight shadows. But Chongsang sprinted ahead, believing he had finally escaped. Suddenly, a sharp pair of eyes tracked his every move. High above, a silent figure stood like a stone statue. He didn't realize a powerful master was judging him. Back at the sect, the peaceful atmosphere felt strangely heavy. He gazed at his stolen treasure with pure greed. This was exactly what he needed to change his fate. He planned to erase every memory of this night. A heavy knocking echoed through the quiet room. His heart stopped. Was someone already at his door? Wooden door creaked open with an ominous sound. It was Martial Uncle Hunyo, looking colder than ice. The elder noted that the boy was still awake. Chongsang stammered, a weak excuse about training late. A suffocating silence filled the space between them. News of a destroyed inn had already reached the sect. Worse, someone had witnessed the forbidden plum blossom art. Cold sweat dripped down the boy's pale, panicked face. Then came the command, "Show me your hands." A sword always leaves its marks on the palms. Was his secret about to be exposed right now? Right now. Slowly, he extended his hands with a heavy heart. What? They trembled violently under the elder's piercing, relentless gaze. Relentless gaze. The elder's eyes narrowed into sharp, icy slits. He unsheathed his blade and pointed it forward. You! The young disciple gasped as cold steel touched his throat. The elder demanded a confession for the horrific crimes. The boy's voice cracked from pure, unadulterated terror. The master recalled seeing him smiling after the massacre. Memories of the shadowy figure returned like a haunting ghost. He was ashamed to call this murderer his own disciple. Am! Cold sweat poured down the boy's pale, trembling face. Suddenly, his knees buckled and hit the floor with force. He admitted to committing a sin beyond any possible forgiveness. The truth finally exploded. He was a hopeless gambling addict. He remembered the thrill of winning big at the den, but a losing streak followed, leaving him desperate and broke. In madness, he even wagered his master's sacred jade plaque. Greed consumed him as he signed the Devil's Bank contract. A mysterious woman appeared and sealed his dark fate. No! He confessed to everything while trembling at the elder's feet. Did he think killing creditors would make the debt vanish? He stood frozen in shame, unable to meet his master's gaze. Baze slammed his forehead against the hard wooden floor. Yeah. He begged for mercy as blood trickled down his skin. Oh! The elder looked down with a heavy, disappointed silence. Finally, he commanded the broken man to stand up. Was it truly possible to find redemption after such betrayal? The martial uncle sighed while gazing at the moon. He spoke of protecting the future stars of Manhwa, decided to overlook the dark sins committed this time. Disciple wept, his forehead bruised from desperate kowtowing. A single tear fell as he called out in gratitude. The elder reminded him that murder is never acceptable. Their sect's reputation outweighed the lives of a few commoners. Heartbroken, the young man could not stop his heavy sobbing. Yeah! He bowed low, thanking his uncle for this mercy. Yeah! The elder stood silently, listening to the boy's soft sniffling. By the way, who did you say those people were? Loan sharks or not, their sins did not warrant death. The disciple paused, trying to recall their exact names. No! He looked out at the night, unaware of the coming storm. The boy finally mentioned the name of his victim. Suddenly, the elder's hand shot out and seized his collar. The room grew cold as the martial uncle's expression changed. Terrified, the disciple asked what he had done wrong. A terrifying shadow consumed the elder's once calm features. He gripped the fabric tighter, his breathing becoming ragged. The young man trembled, paralyzed by this sudden, violent shift. Did you actually just say the name Continental Bank? Yes, I am absolutely certain that was the name. Beads of sweat erupted on the elder's pale, horrified face. Heavy footsteps echoed through the silent, dark manor. Then, a panicked elder burst through the heavy chamber doors. Whoa! He screamed for his leader with a voice full of terror. Taoist Hyunjong looked up calmly from his quiet midnight work. Messenger collapsed instantly, gasping for his very breath. Hyunjong sighed, focusing back on his delicate ink strokes. He spoke of inner peace and the stillness of water. Suddenly, the messenger shouted about the dreaded Continental Bank. The brush slipped, ruining the perfect character on the page. Hyunjong stared at his trembling hand in total disbelief. His composed facade crumbled as the black ink pooled darkly. What? Was the news truly that catastrophic? The vast room felt colder in that heavy, sudden silence. The leader felt a cold sweat drip down his face. What did a powerful bank want with Manhwa? The elder revealed that Cheongsong had committed a brutal murder. Dead? Important people from the bank were actually dead? Hyunjong's eyes widened as the true danger finally hit him. Ha! Suddenly, the sect leader stood with a fierce, new intensity. He ordered every single disciple to be summoned immediately. The elder trembled at the mention of the command tablet. I need every detail of this bloody slaughter. The messenger hurried back out into the dark night. Young watched him go with a heavy, sinking heart. His hand shook as he thought of those two people. The entire mountain would wake to face war. Sect leader Hyunjong recalled the horrors of the Continental War. He remembered a boy's face, pale and soaked in blood. The youth stood alone as his world burned into ashes. Corpses littered the ground, victims of a ruthless, fiery slaughter. That man had turned their mountain into a wasteland. The memory haunted Hyunjong, a shadow that never truly left. In the present, he faced his elders with heavy news. He gritted his teeth, suppressing a rising tide of panic. He issued a chilling order to gather everyone immediately. Suddenly, the quiet night of Manhwa was shattered. Numerous disciples assembled in the courtyard under the moon. What? Whispers spread through the ranks like a sudden wildfire. A disciple yawned, still rubbing sleep from his tired eyes. Why were they summoned in the dead of the night? Suddenly, rumors of a demonic cult invasion began to stir. An emergency summons had not happened in several long years. The atmosphere grew heavy with an unspoken, suffocating dread. The sect leader slowly ascended the high stone platform. Hyunjong stood at the front looking like a stone statue. Go. The disciples gasped, sensing a terrifying shift in the air. Their gentle leader was gone, replaced by a cold warrior. He looked down at the crowd with grim, sharp determination. A cold shadow draped over his aging features. Oh! Suddenly, he called out a name that stunned the crowd. Cheongsong froze as the leader ordered him to step forward. Cheongsong slowly approached the platform under a heavy silence. He bowed low, his sweat dripping onto the cold stone floor. Dao, he nervously asked why the great leader had summoned him. Suddenly, a violent kick exploded against his jaw without warning. Wah! You absolute bastard! The leader roared, his voice echoing with rage. Was he finished? No. The leader's fury was only beginning. He ruthlessly stomped on the boy, crushing him into the dirt. Dark blood sprayed from Cheongsong's mouth as his ribs shattered. The leader screamed about the untouchable power of Continental Bank. In the next moment, the watching disciples trembled in pure terror. Did he really say the Continental Bank? The disciples couldn't believe it. The elders rushed forward, desperate to stop the lethal beating. It would be better if he died, the leader shrieked hysterically. They struggled to restrain the man before he committed a murder. The leader's own face turned pale with overwhelming dread. Bo! Cheongsong lay broken, a pathetic heap of bruised flesh and bone. He stared blankly into a growing pool of his own blood. The weight of their impending doom hung heavily in the air. "You are an absolute fool," the leader hissed through gritted teeth. Then came the final blow. He had officially ruined Manhwa. Cheongsong struggled to his knees, hacking up more thick, red liquid. Each heavy drop hitting the ground sounded like a ticking clock. He admitted his crimes of gambling and blood, his voice cracking. But why was the leader this terrified of a mere bank? Another brutal slap sent him spiraling back into the darkness. The old man roared with pure, unbridled fury. Cheongsong clutched his swollen face as hot tears began falling. He looked up, trembling beneath the weight of his master's gaze. The master's fist clenched tightly until his veins nearly exploded. Did the representatives from the Continental Bank truly meet their end? Please, just tell me those dangerous people are actually dead. Cheongsong managed a weak, stuttering confirmation. Was there visual proof? Did he actually see the bodies? The elder lunged forward and seized the boy's collar. Answer me now. Did you see them stop breathing? The room exploded, so I assumed they couldn't possibly survive. Assumed? Did you really leave their survival to mere chance? A brutal kick sent the fool crashing into the dirt. What happens to us if those monsters are still alive? But the disgraced disciple lay broken, staring at the cold floor. Deep down, Cheongsong felt this treatment was completely unfair. In his mind, he saw the old inn crumble into dust. Pillars snapped and the ceiling collapsed like fragile glass. Surely no mere money-grubbing merchant could survive such a disaster? However, a terrifying shadow loomed over the entire courtyard. It would have been better if you died in that rubble. The master's voice was frigid, devoid of any fatherly affection. Total annihilation now threatened the future of the Manhwa sect. Finally, the weight of his colossal mistake crushed his spirit, because those debt collectors were far more than simple men. Even the mighty Manhwa sect leader trembled in terror. He bellowed a command to put everyone on highest alert. The disciples saluted and prepared for the coming storm. A heavy silence fell over the entire sect grounds. Jock! In the next moment, a bloody guard collapsed onto the floor. His face was battered, showing the sheer power of his attackers. The sect leader looked down with a cold, piercing gaze. He whispered a single, chilling word that echoed, "Pray!" He told the guard to pray. Their enemies had truly perished. A loud horn blasted across the mountain path. The remaining guards tightened their grip on their swords. The sect leader's expression shifted into pure shock. A frantic report arrived about a pair approaching the front gate. The wounded disciple could barely believe the news he heard. High above, the full moon illuminated the beautiful cherry blossoms. A pair of strangers walked calmly through the falling petals. A tall man and a beautiful woman stepped into view. The man wore a serene smile as if he were home. His companion watched the surroundings with a sharp, calculating gaze. Suddenly, a panicked guard screamed for the duo to halt. Whoa! He barked that Manhwa was now closed to all outsiders. The guard demanded their names and their reason for visiting, but the man simply let out a low, amused chuckle. He introduced himself as Manager Kim from the prestigious Continental Bank. Finally, he declared he was there to collect a massive debt.